At Mertech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on October the 9th in the year of our Lord 2025. Let me jump over here to give you our shorts appetizers.
This is just the world. What's up, guys? It's Benny. Just a reminder that nobody is above the law. Democrats have said it again and again and again and again. Letitia James is the person who wanted to lock Donald Trump up and bankrupt his family for 400 years, and she's said it many, many times here. She even made a poem about it on Valentine's Day, and she said it like in moments like this. No one is above the law. And so I'm sure nobody's going to have a problem right now that Letitia James has just been indicted for mortgage fraud. Letitia James has lied on her mortgage application. She's defrauded the taxpayers. She claimed multiple residences that were clearly in violation of New York law, Virginia law, federal law. She's defrauded the taxpayers, and she's somebody who's clearly a cheat and a scam artist. Letitia James, ironically enough, has now been indicted, according to CNN, in Virginia for doing the exact same thing that she claimed Donald Trump was doing, which was defrauding the taxpayers with incorrect valuations and paperwork for her real estate.
We talked a lot about the countless Americans who are going to lose their paychecks in a prolonged shutdown. We've also seen lawmakers from both chambers and both sides of the aisle say that they will forfeit their checks to stand in solidarity with those Americans. Are you or any members of your leadership team planning on doing the same thing?
That's an individual decision that every member will have to make on November 1st. Hopefully, Republicans will actually get back to Washington well before that, do their job so we can sit down, reopen the government now, enact a spending agreement that makes life better for the American people now and addresses the Republican healthcare crisis.
Okay, let me just interject here. The Republicans already did their job. The Democrats are the one that put in a change for this, okay? They wanted to change it and go back so that illegals could get health care and extra $1.5 trillion worth of changes. And this dishonest person is saying that the Republicans need to do their job. No, they don't. They've already done their job. Thank you very much.
What stands out tonight is this stunning contrast of what we're seeing. This history is being made. Here's President Trump showing peace through strength, using his power and position to bring peace to the Middle East. I mean, a truly massive, historic foreign policy achievement, returning hostages, restoring security to Israel, setting a foundation for lasting peace, and reducing taxes on hardworking Americans at the same time, and ending the border crisis, and ending the crime crisis, and reducing fraud, waste, and abuse in government, and now settling international conflicts all around the globe. And here's the Democrats on Capitol Hill acting like a bunch of clowns. They're trying to lie to the American people. They're trying to play politics with government funding. and real Americans are being harmed. I think that there is such a stark contrast. I'm not sure there has ever been such a strong contrast between two political parties. The Republican Party is delivering for the American people, and the Democrats trying to make a show out of this.
Okay, now I want to interject again here about this Hamas thing. That's been all over the news today, and some of that will be in my daily news wrap-up tonight. But the thing is, I trust that Donald Trump is doing his best to try to create peace around the world, not just in the United States, but I will believe it when I see it. Not because of anything that Donald Trump hasn't done or has done, but I just don't trust the leadership of this Hamas group. Okay? I believe that they've had deals before, and they've fallen down. They've broken down because of Hamas. So, again, I'll believe it when I see it. It's supposed to happen Monday or Tuesday. We'll see.
What stands out?
All right, that's some of those peaceful protests that they've been talking about.
That's why they shouldn't be reporters.
Which job is he here for today,
Come
sir?
on up here, Marsland. Anything we should know about the Middle East?
That's what we're hoping to talk to you about here, Mr. President. Let's stay with
He's doing a good job.
Well, they're smart, but they're not smart enough. Oh, my microphone's broken. They're smart, but they're not smart enough. They have been covered by these liberal cities for so many years. And that's why we're all working with Treasury, with all these different departments, to find the criminal conspiracy.
Okay. I'm just giving. I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East. That's why.
There's this video of them, one of them who was in the face of an ICE agent, and then he's in custody shaking. Once you take the mask off, they're nothing. Right. And I was told by probably a dozen people not to tell you this. I'm going to tell it to you anyway, because it's relevant to what we're talking about. I'm living proof that you can recover from TDS. I had strong Trump derangement syndrome for probably 8 years. This is one of the reasons I recovered from it. And by the way, it's much better to not have TDS. I'm happier, I'm healthier, more successful. I even think I got a little more attractive after I got rid of my Trump derangement syndrome. Yes. There's this video of them, one of...
Just one final point on that. Ghislaine Maxwell's attempt at an appeal has failed. Donald Trump was asked if he might pardon her. As you know, it's a very contentious issue. He kind of batted it away and said, we'll take a look at it, which seems to suggest the door may be open. Would you want to see Ghislaine Maxwell pardoned, or would you want the opposite?
I would never even consider it. I mean, she's a convicted human trafficker. She was a party to this. She set it up. By her own admission, she was involved in all this. There's no way she should ever leave prison.
Just one final point on that. Ghislaine Maxwell's attempt at an appeal.
Okay, let me go ahead, and that's great information there. I always like to drop these snippets, especially since I got some feedback from my audience that said they like that. So let me jump over here, and this is the video that we're watching right now, episode 1710. Okay, so let's slide down here to the description box. We have information from Bannons War Room, Doug in Exile, USA Watchdog, and X22 report. But before we get into that, I do need to give a shout out to Janders6, just started following my channel. Esther Warrior just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, we have Foxy Grandma commented on my episode 1709 from last night. Debbie BS commented on my extra 493A. And Debbie BS also commented on my extra 492B. and my extra 492C. So thank you very much for your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I sincerely appreciate your support. So let me go ahead and give this a thumbs up. Boom. There you go. There you go. And I have one of those thumbs up icons right below the video that you're watching. If you just slide down there and hit that thumbs up button, that would be fantastic. Okay, we're going to start off here with Bannons War Room, Bradley Thayer, on Antifa. This is well-organized, interstate coordinated machine, and I believe it. Let's see what he has to say.
Bringing Dr. Bradley Thayer. Dr. Bradley Thayer, behind the scenes, is also one of the drivers of everything we're working on regarding Antifa. You're kind of an expert, Dr. Thayer. You saw the roundtable today. Give the audience the assessment, kind of the précis of what went down today, sir.
Yeah, Steve, it was really important today. What President Trump did, as long as with the cabinet secretaries and Kash Patel and the journalists there who were offering evidence, which was, again, critically important. President Trump was getting out the accounts, the evidence about what Antifa has been doing. So you heard, as Brian Glenn mentioned as well, you heard in the cold open too, Kash say to follow the money. The donors really are the nervous system of the body of what we're dealing with here. The brain is going to be revealed, right? Who's actually controlling it? But Antifa is the muscle, right? The most overt element, really, of this organization, this organism that we're dealing with. You heard several people mention that Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent is making great progress in revealing how that money is conveyed, how it's generated, how it's raised, how it's disseminated. Thirdly, as Brian Glenn mentioned, importantly, one of the journalists talked about a safe house in Portland, very close to the ICE facility. So that journalist also mentioned that the same people appear, the same supplies. In sum, that this is a well-organized interstate, a coordinated machine, really, that's operating here. You also heard that the Tides Foundation, Act Blue, other donors were mentioned, as well as some journalists, the media as well. And then you heard Jack Posobiec talk about the necessity of declaring Antifa a foreign terrorist organization, right? As Jack said, that there are ties to Europe and the Middle East, and that Secretary Rubio is going to act, or likely will ask on that. And then finally, ultimately, you heard President Trump ask for names. So what happened today? A lot of evidence was revealed, a lot of documentation, a lot of really the accounts of what Antifa has been doing and how these journalists have suffered, right? Having been imprisoned, having been physically beaten up, again, by this terrorist organization that we've allowed to operate in American cities, right? To conduct this terrorist organization and this insurrection against the government year after year. And that has to stop, and President Trump is stopping that. So Antifa's the muscle.
Hang on one second. I'm gonna hold you. Hang on. I'm gonna hold you through the break, and I want to get into this second. You know, Dr. Thayer originally came on here for the great Andy Marshall. He wrote an amazing book about the Chinese Communist Party in China. The way I was introduced was through Andy Marshall, and but his expertise is really understanding Marxist revolutionary theory. And I tell people the economics of communism didn't work, but the Marxist, the atheistic, take no prisoners Marxism is infested in this country. This is what we're fighting in New York City in this election. So this is what Antifa is about. This is, you've seen the escalating violence. It's part of Marxist theory of how they bring down a culture and bring down a society. Okay, Thayer, we got to bounce, got a couple minutes, but back to you have followed these revolutionary movements, and particularly Marxism. And folks, just because the fall of the Berlin Wall, the cancer that is Marxism was not killed. Okay, it's thriving today. This is part of what we're fighting. I don't call it communism because I think that takes into account more of the economics, but it's definitely Marxism, and it's on the ballot in New York, and it's going to win by 20 plus points on, I think, November 4th. To take over the financial capital of the world with Zorhan. Your thoughts, sir, as you saw today, Antifa, the first roundtable, and the president sharing it. We got a couple minutes, Dr. Thayer. The floor is yours.
Sure. Yeah, Steve, this dates back to the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917 when Lenin and his allies seized power, of course, in Russia. One of the things that the Bolsheviks wanted to do was to spread that revolution globally. To do that effectively in an organized way, they created something called the Communist International, or the Comintern. And the job of the Comintern, through the executive committee of the Communist International, was to look at every state to find out how to advance a communist revolution in every state. And that included China or British India, as well as Britain, Germany, France, the United States as well. And what they recognized was there were going to be certain efforts that they needed to undertake in political warfare to advance a communist revolution in each of those states. That was going to require seizing control of the media, seizing control of businesses, of political parties, working through the Communist Party, but also other parties. They also recognized they needed muscle. That is, they needed to own the streets. If they're going to bring about a revolution, they've got to actually physically dominate the public environment, the public sphere, the streets of countries. And to do that, they created and implemented Red Guards, as they called it at the time. Well, Antifa basically is just a modern form of Red Guards, right? They're the muscle to bring about this revolution. They're funded, right? Again, they're connected. Yep. There's a nervous system. There's a brain behind this. There's a skeletal system. And what President Trump...
Hey, we got to bounce, but I'm going to have you back tomorrow. It's a skeletal system, and President Trump laid out kind of, hey, how we're going about it. You got the first layer of the street thugs. That's what you see every night in Portland. Then you get the second layer, and this is where it gets scary, of people inside the apparatus that trained them, special forces, and yes, military personnel. They've infiltrated they have infiltrated the military. This is who the Antifa guys tell you, this is who trains them. Then you have the organizational, the politicians, the media, and the money, the third layer. We're going to get to all that. The Red Guard, and kind of they are the muscle, the street muscle, like the brown shirts. And this is what President Trump's going to take down, not just the brown shirts, but as Kash Patel said, they're already deep into looking at the money. Dr. Thayer, first of all, you had an amazing book. You've got a couple amazing books.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on from here, but what they're saying is absolutely right. I mean, it's well organized. We talk about the deep state. It runs deep and wide, folks. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Bannon's War Room. I'm subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here and look at what's next. It looks like we have Doug in Exile. MSNBC tries to rebrand as non-woke. Well, let's check that out.
Let's get to it. Here's MSNBC. As you know, they've been taken over now, but it's MS Now or whatever it is. They have a new brand. They had a new internal memo on how they're going to run their organization to bring back ratings.
Here, Priya to you, Newsbusters writes the following. This is about MSNBC, MS Now, because they have a new code of conduct. He says the funniest aspect of Monday's split from, MSNBC was the release of a new code of conduct dubbed 10 Core Principles. We're not going to read them all because 4 is plenty, by an executive with MSNBC's new parent company, Versant, that includes things like accuracy, fairness, and integrity. And they've also thrown...
I like how they admit that they're now going to start a brand new policy of accuracy, fairness, and integrity. MSNBC is going, you know what, guys? I got an idea. We've only been inaccurate, we've only been unfair, and we've only had zero integrity. That's total disaster.
Transparency and a bunch of other things. This is MSNBC we're talking about, Priya. What do you think?
I find it absolutely hilarious. I don't know if this is an attempt at a rebrand or if they're trying to claim that this has been the case all along.
Oh, no, it's an attempt at comedy. We'll get right back to that MSNBC stuff. Medicare premiums are going up, and many Medicare Advantage plans are flat out disappearing. This affects you.
Okay, he's actually going into a commercial here.
Here's another one. A new insurance company. With them, the part is call my 9 branding of MS Now.
However, we all know that has just not been true. I mean, there's been time after time after time where we've seen MSNBC be completely disingenuous in their rhetoric, and we were just talking about inflammatory rhetoric, mind you. They have been some of the champions of that. Yeah. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Are you saying MS Now should be like BS Now? I mean,
we'll go with BS Now. That works. Probably more accurate to their brand. Here's more on censorship of our pal. This is Sean Davis before Senator Eric Schmidt.
The CDC had approved words and phrases that social media companies could use. In this secret portal that was established between the government and these social media companies conveyed this. And if people utter this phrase, I mean, this is sort of like, this is prior restraint. So like, this is what you will take down ahead of time. CISA was very much involved in this. You have an alphabet soup of agencies most people have never heard of that were weaponized against millions of voices in this country. We talk about President Trump a lot, but there's just a lot of just people who were online who had questions about forced masking of kids or the vaccine mandate, all those sorts of things, and they were throttled or taken down. So given what you know about organizations like the Election Integrity Project, that's
the one that got us, the Election Integrity Project. If you question the ballots or the votes or anything like that, you got taken down. That happened to me through the Election Integrity Project. These are all Biden made up largest performance of government censorship against American citizens in not just American history, but probably world history, because of how far these actual agencies went to stop people from asking questions about COVID. All done under Biden. Remember, they do not believe in free speech. They believe in government censorship because they cannot win a debate, is the key.
Another one. In collaboration with CISA and receive taxpayer funding. How are these NGOs still working currently to harm individuals from speaking their mind, particularly conservatives?
Yeah, it's a great question. The thing about these censorship tools and technologies and efforts is they're a little bit like injecting something into the body's bloodstream. They inject it in, it's in there, it's working its thing. And just because you pull the needle out doesn't mean the effects are gone. A lot of these organizations are still out there using technologies and tools that were deliberately funded and distributed by the federal government for the purpose of censoring people like me, people like Alex Berenson, people like my colleague Molly Hemingway. I don't know if we will ever actually be free of the effects of this censorship industrial complex that the previous administration created. I don't know if we will ever be free of the horrible effect that it created, the horrible dampening and abridgment of our speech that we were forced to endure secretly for years, and the extent of which we still don't fully know.
Yeah, they're still there. They're still there doing their job, paid for by the government because those agencies have not been shut down. Their censorship work has not been stopped. So that's what's weird is it's very easy to open up censorship. It's very hard to make it go away once it's going. Now, this is on the polling. About X from CNN, which is bad news for CNN and very good news for those of us who are for free speech.
Over. And oh my goodness gracious, what a tremendous, monumental shift on the regular news consumers on Twitter/X. You go back to 2021, the party ID margin. Democrats were 37 points more likely. You were 37 points more likely to be a Democrat on Twitter or X than a Republican. Jump ahead to this side of the screen. It's completely changed around. Oh, my goodness gracious. Now it's a 14-point lead for Republicans on Twitter/X. We're talking about a 51-point shift in the margin. And John and I were talking about it just before. You can see it with your own eyes. This is polling reflecting what you're seeing in the social media real world, where all of a sudden, John, you just see a lot more Republicans in your...
You see more Republicans because now we're not being hidden by Democrats. What they don't understand is this is a huge self-own against Democrats. Why was it in 2021 that you only saw 37 points worth more of Democrats on Twitter? Because that was under Jack Dorsey and the FBI that shadow banned a ton of us. We flat out went invisible. I'm still almost invisible on Twitter. There's still some code there stopping my channel from being seen, even under Elon Musk. It's not easy to go back in and remove that code, which Sean Davis was saying. The long-term effects continue long after it's ended. Lo and behold, Elon Musk buys Twitter, and free speech is always a better brand. You've heard me warn Twitter and Facebook and YouTube how you do not want your brand to be destroy Republicans and conservatives and Christian voices, destroy dissent, win arguments through censorship. It's a terrible brand. It's bad for business. No one wants to be on your platform, and everyone's terrified if you're super hardcore. That's why I'm so happy YouTube gave me my channel back. And why I'm so, and that was all because Elon Musk bought Twitter.
I like the word social. Okay. So this is a huge shift. You just don't see shifts like this in general. But what about the idea that there are social media places that Democrats can go? Maybe they're going there instead, and that's making up for it all.
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of folks that I know who are on the left side of the aisle who ran over to Blue Sky or ran over to Threads.
Hold on. Now, I'm going to tell you what Blue Sky is in a minute. That 14 points ahead by the GOP. This is the Fox News effect, by the way. Fox News was only the #1 news channel that Republicans watched because every other channel on cable was woke. You had CNN, you had MSNBC, you had the BBC, you had PBS. They were all woke. The only place that you could get right-leaning news was from Fox News. So, of course, half of the audience goes to that one channel. The other channels all have to distribute their communist, Marxist, atheistic audience, pro-rainbow, anti-life audience, have to split among every other channel, which is like 20 of them. So lo and behold, Twitter, which is known by Republicans as it's the least censorious, the most free speech platform right now in the world, is X. And so they get a 14-point advantage. Of course, Republicans are going to go there. It's the only one. Now we're going to look at Blue Sky. What's Blue Sky? Blue Sky is the platform that Jack Dorsey started after he sold X to Elon Musk. He was, I'm going to go open up a platform that's going to censor conservatives and stop disinformation. And so only lefties went over. And Blue Sky, if you've ever been on it, it's psycho. It's leftist psychos.
But here's the deal, Johnny O. The bottom line is those are minuscule compared to Twitter or X. Use this social media in 2025. 21% of Americans are on Twitter or X. Threads, it's just 8%. Blue Sky, even smaller, just 4%.
Threads is the Meta Facebook social media site.
You add together the 4 plus the 8, that gets you to 12%. That is only about half the level that are on Twitter/X. So as Twitter/X has gone to the right, yes, there are people, as Johnny moves away from me, from the left, who have come over and started to use either Threads or Blue Sky, but that does not have the megaphone, as my voice is oftentimes, that Twitter/X does. So the bottom line, that Twitter/X has become much more for the right, has been a real difference maker in terms of what folks are hearing when they go.
And it's wrong to imply that X went to the right from the top. It was not a top-down censor decision. It's free speech. Twitter moved to the right naturally. When you remove censorship, conservatives and Christians can speak. Republicans can speak without losing their Twitter handle, without losing their reach. So it naturally, all you have to do is remove those barriers. Those barriers are still there at Threads with 8% and Blue Sky with only 4% of the people using it, because even the left doesn't like censorship. It's better to be on a open platform like this one. Now let's get to the arrests of the Biden administration. I found this tweet very interesting. Because my lefty friends believe that Trump is out getting them, here's how many people were arrested under Biden's administration. These are Republicans arrested by Biden. Donald Trump, Walt Nauta, he had his driver, his head of the Carlos de Oliveira, remember these names, Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, Thomas Barack Jr., Matthew Grimes, Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, John Eastman, Kenneth Chesborough, Sidney Powell, Jenna Ellis, Scott Graham Hall, Sean Still, David James Schaefer, Kathleen Latham. I'm going to go down this a little quicker. Harrison, William Prescott Floyd, who we had on this show last year, Stephen Lee, Ray Smith III, Michael Roman, who blew open the Fonnie Willis case, Misty Hampton, Kelly Ward, Tyler Boyer. Here's Jacob Hoffman. Let's see if I can go down here. I don't recognize a whole lot of these names, which just goes to show they went after normie Republicans too. Here's Clifford Frost, John Haggard. Keep going down here, see if I recognize any of these people. Oh, Tina Peters, and Steve Bannon, George Papadopoulos, plus 1,265 J6 defendants were arrested. Oh, and don't forget, Roger Stone was also arrested. Here's the list of all the Democrats arrested under the draconian totalitarian Trump administration. Zero. And yes, we need us some scalps. We need to arrest Merrick Garland. We need to arrest Jack Smith, James Comey. We'll get them all. I want them all. I want Mayorkas especially too. Here's more on that chilling effect. I don't know if I'm going to be able to legally show this clip, but this is from the Big Brother show, which is actually more like real life Big Brother. This lady contestant was misgendered a trans, that is a biological male presenting as a female, and she called them a him or the wrong gender. Listen to how Big Brother just berates them.
Before you entered the Big Brother house, the rules regarding unacceptable language and behavior were explained to you.
I like how this voice is only pretending to be Big Brother, but look at all the eyeballs around the circle. Look at her pinned in the middle of this thing under her interrogation.
Yesterday at 11:21 p.m. during a game of Spin the Bottle.
We have the exact time. You are playing an innocent game of Spin the Bottle.
You had the line. You said to Nancy, if you could shag anyone in the house. No.
Okay, look at her shame. Look at her shame. Total shame. They keep putting the camera on. I'm going to skip ahead here because she finally puts her face out. That she's like, how do you plea?
Oh, God.
Crying.
Caroline, Big Brother thinks that your language in these instances was offensive and unacceptable.
Offensive and unacceptable. They give her a formal warning. This is just like real life under the Democrat Party. This is a game show called Big Brother. But this is like real life if you're a Republican or a Christian living under the Biden regime. Now, more woke madness. This one's great. Now, Amazon is a leftist company. Jeff Bezos. And here are this is Amazon headquarters in Seattle, Washington, employees in a group calling themselves Amazon Worker Intifada, staged a protest on the 7th shouting, there's only one solution, Intifada revolution. This is employee violence getting together in Washington, the state, against Amazon. Look at that. Look at that mob with their Palestinian flags. Now, how long do you think it's going to be before Amazon moves to a red state, so they don't have to put up with their own employees trying to censor their own company? Wait, there's...
Oh, it's amazing here. I'm going to go ahead and move on, folks, but I'll tell you what, when these companies, it doesn't matter what the ownership or the management is. When you're in a left-wing state, you're going to have to pay the price, okay? That's why so many companies are moving to Texas and Florida and Tennessee and other states where they can actually do business and they don't have to worry about their employees throwing fits. Amazing. Okay, this video does come from Doug in Exile. I'm subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, let's jump back here and see what we have next. That would be USA Watchdog, Greg Hunter. Okay, let me make sure I get the screen here shared for you. There we go. All right. USA Watchdog, Greg Hunter, Fiat currency experiment ending globally with John Rubino. Let's check that out.
Normally, I don't cover gold and silver, all the time. Cover it, but not all the time. But when it's hitting new all-time highs week after week and sometimes day after day, and I don't mean up a couple of bucks. I mean up 40, 50. I think today it's up at $20. New all-time high, ones after another. Something's, hey, great for people who own gold and silver, but, ding, 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 warning, warning, danger. There's something wrong. And there's something really, scaring the heck out of big money, and that's why gold is taking off. Also, silver is, knocking on $50, record high door as well. And to talk about that is John Rubino with his great Substack. John Rubino used to have dollarcollapse.com, and I just had a guest on, Craig Kemke, saying the dollar is collapsing against gold. But John, how you doing? Thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Good, Greg. Thanks for having me go.
I was just watching the one of the news channel, Bloomberg, and they had Jamie Dimon on, and they was like, "Oh, Jamie, ask him some stupid puffball question like, where does your company stand right now?" And I'm thinking, oil's in the low 60s for both Brent and West Texas, and gold's at record high. What's going on? I'm going to ask you that. You could be my Jamie. Low 60s and gold at another record high.
Well, let's start with gold because those two stories are related, but they're not at all moving for the same reasons right now. Gold, if you watch the financial press, they're noting that the price is going up, but they're treating it like just any other asset, right? But gold is humanity's oldest form of money, and when it goes up, and it's a rock, it doesn't actually do anything. So when it goes up in price, that means the currencies against which we're measuring it are going down in value. And what we're seeing all around the world is fiat currencies declining in value dramatically against most real things, but especially against gold. And gold now, just in the last couple of weeks, pierced not just its all-time nominal high, but its all-time inflation-adjusted high, which is a much bigger deal because we've had so much inflation in the last 30 or 40 years. And basically, gold is saying that the fiat currency experiment is ending. In other words, the monetary system that we set up in 1971 when we went off the gold standard and gave all the major countries basically unlimited credit cards via monetary printing presses, led them to create way too much debt, increase their spending dramatically, and basically make all the mistakes that a typical human makes when you give them an unlimited credit card. So now we're burdened with debt that we can never pay off. Everybody expects to be taken care of by their governments. I'm going to talk about France in a second as a good example of this because it's almost hilarious what's going on there. And governments around the world are forced to borrow more and more money to cover the obligations they've taken on and to cover the interest costs on their debts. And that requires them to print more money, which is lowering the value of the currencies even more quickly and leading to basically a currency death spiral. So that's where we are right now. And to put this in real world terms, France is a good example because they're in the news right this minute. Basically, in the 50s and 60s and 70s, the French baby boomers started to write themselves some really cushy laws governing retirement and work rules and things like that. So today, French people don't work that many hours. They get to retire very early with very generous versions of Social Security and Medicare. And that's costing a fortune, as you might expect. So the French government is going more and more deeply into debt. They're running much higher deficits than they're allowed to under the Maastricht Treaty, which governs the Eurozone and the EU. And the French government knows that they're heading for a financial catastrophe. So periodically, they try to cut spending, or they try to raise taxes in a meaningful way. But the French people just hit the streets, and there's political chaos, and the government gets kicked out of office, and new people have been brought in or come in who aren't going to cut spending. And what's happening right now is they're trying to cut spending again, but the new prime minister they just installed named his cabinet and had to quit within 16 hours of naming his cabinet. So they have no government in France. They're on autopilot. Their deficits are exploding. The interest costs on their debt is exploding, and there's no fix for it. So their currency, basically, I mean, the euro is a currency that is shared by the rest of Europe. But since most of the rest of Europe has the same problems as France, the euro is doomed. You know, it's a currency that's going to die within the coming decade. And if you look around the world, you see, or
sooner. And you know, John, I got to tell you, Martin Armstrong said that France was dipping into the Russian sovereign wealth fund, and they can't pay the money back. And what you're saying, I know we're laughing. It's not, if you're a Russian, you're not laughing. I mean, they're robbing, they're stealing. Now they're at the theft point of their society, right?
Well, because what that means is the French government is less afraid of Vladimir Putin than it is of its own people.
Wow.
You know, they will hit the streets in a heartbeat if they don't get their benefits and everything, or they have to work longer hours, or you cannot adopt austerity in a society that's used to easy money.
They let them eat cake.
You know, now. And another thing that's happening in Europe
now, I'm sorry,
that is feeding into this. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. In Europe, they've had open border policies for the last decade or so, and so they've been swamped by people from, you know, in a lot of cases, incompatible cultures. So they're heading for either a cultural collapse or a civil war at the same time that they're destroying their finances. So you look at the UK or Germany or France, and you've got this same crazy scenario where there might be a currency collapse at the same time there's a civil war, and they have no fix. They have no ideas for fixing any of this stuff. So we're watching this train wreck in real time, and we should be watching it because it is our future. You know, we've got control of our borders, so the whole immigration thing isn't an imminent civil war, and yet we're still, you know, there's a lot of civil unrest in the U.S. So we're headed for rising civil unrest at the same time we've got a currency crisis brewing. So there's no fix for any of this stuff under the current monetary system. So the only solution is to change monetary systems, do that currency reset. And that brings with it, I mean, that's what we have to do. It's the least painful way to fix things, but it's not going to be pain-free. It's going to be immensely painful to adopt a new sound currency by devaluing the current currency. But that's all we've got. You know, we have no solution for that. That's why people are buying gold, because gold is protection against a currency crisis, since it's the oldest form of money, and it holds its value while these crappy fiat currencies just are eroded away and evaporate. So that's why the whole world is buying gold. Central banks are buying gold. Big commercial banks are buying gold as a reserve asset. And individuals now are starting to buy gold and silver for personal protection. And this was always inevitable. I've been writing about this stuff since like 2004. So,
let me
back
tell
when I had black hair.
Let me tell you. Hold on. Wait. I just dialed this up while you were talking, because I thought you said currency death spiral. Sure enough, back in 3/9/24, about a little more than a year ago, right? A little more than a year ago. The title of your interview was "Eventual Financial Death Spiral Now Imminent." And well, guess what? It's not only is it imminent, we are living.
I'm not sure why Rumble keeps pausing like this. I apologize for that, folks. So, this is great information. I don't know. Let me do a quick refresh on this with the 8
Been through it now.
There we go.
I mean, gold at 4,000 an ounce. Back then, I think you could buy gold for about $2,000, 1,800.
2 years ago? Yeah, 2 years ago. 2 years
year
ago,
and a half ago,
gold was bouncing at it was bouncing off of 2,000. It was in a trading range where I couldn't get above $2,000 an ounce, and then once it pierced 2,000, there was no looking back, because people, the people who matter in the global financial markets interpreted gold rising as the beginning of this upcoming currency crisis. So they're buying it hand over fist. It's panic buying out there right now.
You called it. I give you some credit for, that was the currency death spiral. I thought, wow, currency. I remember writing the note down, currency. I'm going to use that in the title. And sure enough, I mean, that's what we have now. I may use it in the title again, but I want to just get this in while I'm here. My sponsors, I want to talk about this. I went out. We were out about a few weeks ago.
Okay, I'm going to move forward.
Emergency
Hopefully, I can get past this commercial here without the video just exploding. Hello.
After ICE and throwing bricks and rocks at them, they're out in the streets. How are they making a living? How are they surviving? And they're going after these people. Why am I bringing this up? I mean, one of the people is George Soros. Now, he says he's not funding terrorism. Okay. Well, the Justice Department is looking into him. They're looking into a bunch of different people and all kinds of billionaires and multimillionaires and just regular people, spending money on terror. And that has a big component with the Treasury Department, and the Treasury Department is ruled by Scott Bessent, and the Treasury Department rules the IRS. So there's a big component of the Treasury, IRS going after this funding of terror, and you're seeing it go crazy in Chicago and in Portland and in Washington and all this big crackdown. Why am I telling you this? Because the Treasury Department and the IRS are going to be, wanting to spend their resources on terror and domestic terrorism. And this is why this is a good time to call the tax network U.S. That doesn't told me that the IRS code pink. I think need to be caught up with. I think now's the time to do it, and I think the deals may be better than they would have been a couple of years ago. That's what I think. Back to John Rubino. John, I want to get into gold. You're just a great primer on why people are buying gold. I had Martin Armstrong on talking about. He says, we're going to get to 4,000. There's a resistance there, and then after 4,000, it's going to maybe retrench, and then it's going to go to. It'll go to 4,000, 5,000, then it'll go to 10,000. And he said silver is the same thing. It's going to resistance level at 50. It's all-time high in 2000 and 2011. And, it's down, I think, the day we're doing this interview. But he thinks it's going to go from 50 to 100 and 100 to 200. I mean, where do you think gold and silver are going under the backdrop of a death spiral in currencies?
The people that look at the price that gold would have to go to in order to serve as the foundation of the next monetary system. In other words, as we did it during the classical gold standard that was in place up until World War I. If we went back to that, you need a gold price of around $20,000 an ounce to sufficiently back all the currencies that exist out there now. So if we did that, then gold would go to $20,000 an ounce. But if we didn't, if we just kept on doing what we're doing right now to the bitter end, then the fiat currencies of the world would go to zero, which means gold would go to infinity when measured in those currencies. So my guess is somewhere between 20,000 and infinity for the eventual price of gold.
Okay, now I've heard that based on how much gold that the United States is supposed to have at Fort Knox and wherever the reserves are supposed to be held, based on how much I believe it's like 800,000 ounces of gold. Gold would have to be like $86,000 an ounce for our gold reserves to equal what our national debt is. That's how much, with $37 trillion in debt, how much gold would have to be worth for us to have the value in gold to match what our national debt is. So I don't know. I kind of go along with John here, somewhere between 20,000 to infinity. But let me go ahead and click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Greg Hunter's USA Watchdog. I'm subscribed to his channel. I'm following his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, I'm at the 16-minute mark here in this video, and there's like 30 minutes left in this video. So if you want to watch this, the link to this video is in the description box below. Okay, let's jump down here and see what else we have. More financial information from X22 report is episode 3748A. Trump trapped the D's using tariff money to fund WIC, the Removal of Impoundment Act. Okay, let's check that out and see what he has to say. If this video can start moving, then... Okay, let me refresh this because I don't know.
Against Trump and his entire parallel economic system, which is made up of tariffs, the gold card, energy sales, technology sales. And you can see they're having a very, very difficult time because, once again, he has all the leverage. You see, we're the consumer of all these different nations, and we've been pushing our currency out of this country into other countries, and they were making a fortune off of us. And Trump now has turned this all around. And for them to fight back, it's very, very difficult. And the countries are starting to find out that they have no leverage whatsoever. And as time goes on, they're going to realize that no matter what Trump says, they're going to have to abide by it. And you can see that the only thing that they have left right now is to try to push the entire system into some type of recession, depression. Now, remember, when Biden handed off this terrible economy, we were already in a recession. Trump has been taking this economic system and bringing us out of this deep recession that Biden put us in. I don't know if it was just Biden himself. We know this was Obama, the Federal Reserve, and many other people. But again, they lied about all the numbers, and the entire economy is one gigantic illusion. So Trump has been pulling us out of what Biden, Obama, and the Fed put us into. And they don't want the people to see that the economy is getting better and better and better. And this is why I do believe they're starting the narrative of, hey, Trump is bringing us into a recession. Now, again, I do believe that they're using the shutdown. Yes, there's many different agendas with the shutdown. And I do believe one of them is trying to make sure the Fed has no data where they can just keep the rates where they are. This way, they can use that as an excuse saying, listen, we have no information about the job numbers, about inflation. So at this point in time, we'd rather just keep the rates steady. Now, it depends on how long the shutdown goes, but I do believe this is one of their agendas. And keeping the economy, or I should say the government, shut down, they're hoping they can say, hey, because of this, because of what Trump did, even though it's not Trump, it's actually the Democrats that are doing this, look, he brought the entire economic system into a recession. In the end, this isn't going to work whatsoever. And you could see Trump, he is making many different moves. Yesterday, we mentioned how he was planning to use the tariff money and redirect that into the WIC program. He pretty much trapped the D's, the central bank, pretty much everybody, because again, if they reject this, it's going to look bad for them. Wait, you don't want Trump to supply money to feed the people? What are you going to do with the money? No matter what they do at this point, they're screwed. But I do believe Trump is using this to his advantage because once again, his entire push is to bring us back to where we were before the Federal Reserve and before we came off the gold standard. Because think about it. When we came off the gold standard in 1971, what did they do about 3 years later? They went ahead and they voted on the Impoundment Act of 1974. Why would they do that? Because now that we're off the gold standard, and gold actually kind of acted like the Impoundment Act, because again, you only had a set amount of currency. It was set to gold. You just couldn't print and print and print. So you did have some type of impoundment. Coming off the gold standard, that impoundment went away. The only thing that was left was for the president at the time to say, listen, I don't want to spend the money on this. And you can see the deep state players, they didn't want the president to have that ability. They wanted not even Congress to have that ability. Actually, they pushed this onto the agencies. Yes, Congress would vote for the amount of currency, but those that have been planted into the agencies, they decided where it was going to be spent. And they didn't want the president, whoever might get in as president, to stop this. And I do believe this is Trump's plan to actually reverse everything that they're doing, which we'll be discussing in just a sec. But think about it. The EU right now, they are proposing a 50% steel tariff to counter Trump. And this is not going to work out whatsoever. The steel using sectors like automotive, construction, and appliances, consuming millions of tons of annually, face rising input prices, potentially adding to production costs and consumer inflation. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association has warned the measure go too far, risking competitiveness and global markets. And the tariffs are likely to hurt parts of the EU economy, particularly downstream industries, through higher costs and potential inflation. The European Automobile Manufacturers Association has warned the measures go too far, risking competitiveness in global markets. So basically, when you look at this, yes, the EU might see short-term gains for steel. Now, I don't know if you know this. You're not investing. You're being used. Wall Street, Washington, the asset.com right now. Remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. But they'll be outweighed by long-term damage, including higher overall prices and reduced efficiency in integrated value chains. So the tariffs are likely to hurt parts of the EU economy. And I do believe that those different countries, I think they're going to push back on this because, once again, this is the EU deciding all this. This is the president, Ursula von der Leyen, deciding she's going to tackle this and go up against Trump. And what do you think Trump is going to do? All right, you're placing 50% tariffs on the U.S. We'll just bump them up a little bit. We'll see how that plays out. Now, think about everything that's going on right now. And we know that Biden, Obama, the Fed, they pushed the economy into the ground. And they faked all the numbers. And this is why Biden, when he was handing off the economy to Trump, saying, I'm giving you the strongest economy, which actually was the opposite. It was the weakest economy because the whole thing was one gigantic illusion. And now we can see that they're building up the idea that Trump has brought the economy into a recession. And they're already saying that this is going to be a major, major problem. And you can see that they're already starting this entire narrative. But in the end, it's not going to work because once again, what we're going to find out is that the recession actually started during the Biden administration, and Trump has been bringing us out of the recession. And once again, you could see that this is just the beginning, because I do believe what they're going to do as they keep pushing this, they're going to say it's Trump's recession. They're going to have events just like the shutdown right now, and they're going to try to bury his economy. But in the end, it's not going to work because Trump and the Patriots, what are they doing? They're building a parallel economic system, and it's getting stronger and stronger every single day. And they understand this. They realize this. And Trump now is actually trapping them in all of this, because I do believe in the end, he's going to reverse everything the deep state has done back in 1971 and going all the way back to 1913. Remember, 1971, we came off the gold standard. And all of a sudden in the 74, they implemented the Impoundment Act. And they did this on purpose to make sure that the president had no say in what was spent, where money goes. They wanted to make sure that the swamp creatures in the agency decided where the money went, who actually worked for the deep state, the central bankers. Remember yesterday when Carolyn Levitt put this out? The Democrats are so cruel in their continual votes to shut down the government that they are forced the WIC program for the most vulnerable women and children to run out this week. Thankfully, Trump and the White House have identified a creative solution to transfer the money using Section 232 of the tariff revenues, because they're going to use it to fund the WIC. Now, of course, is this cut and dry? Absolutely not. But think about what Trump did. He went ahead and said, listen, since the Democrats are causing the shutdown, we have women and children, they're not getting the money that they need. And the only way they can get the money is through a clean passage of the House bill, which means we need to borrow more money from the Federal Reserve. So he's saying, instead of doing that, you know what I can do? Since I made the parallel economic system, we can use that money to fund the WIC program. Now, are the D's going to come out and say, no, you're not allowed to do this? We want these people to starve. I mean, then they're going to have starving babies. It's going to look like a complete and utter disaster. So he actually put them on the spot right now. And is he actually setting it up where he's going to set a precedent that he can bypass Congress? And how would you bypass Congress? Well, you would need the Impoundment Act, wouldn't you? So that is very, very interesting. And the Impoundment Act of 1974, which is the actual, what it's actually called is the Impoundment Controlment Act of 1974, is a U.S. federal law that restricts the president's authority to withhold or refuse to spend funds appropriated by Congress. And before 1974, this wasn't there. But the ICA emerged amid escalating tensions over the executive impoundments during the Nixon administration, which withheld up to $18 billion, about 5 to 10% of federal outlays, in the early 70s to oppose congressional spending priorities, particularly in environmental, social programs amid the Vietnam War, and economic pressures. This built on earlier precedents, such as Thomas Jefferson in 1803, withholding a gunboat fund due to changed circumstances, or Franklin D. Roosevelt's World War II era impoundments of public works funding. But again, why did they introduce this law that took the power away from the president? The timing is very, very interesting. So just 3 years after Nixon's August 1971 shock, where he ended the peg to gold, he dismantled Bretton Woods system. And remember, this was supposed to be temporary, and here we are in 2025. That is very, very long temporary status. But the gold standard, if you really think about it, effectively acted like a form of impoundment on fiscal expansion. Under this system, it placed the U.S. from 1900 until 1933 domestically and internationally.
My computer just lock up? Okay, so I'm not sure. Let me do a refresh here.
Actually, until
There we go.
1971. Governments could not freely print money to fund deficits because the currency supply was tied to finite gold reserves. This created a hard limit on spending, exceeding its risk depleting reserves, triggering deflation, capital flight, or economic contraction. It impounded potential spending power by design, enforcing discipline through market forces rather than presidential fiat. So back then, gold actually was the control mechanism. When we came off the gold standard, what happened? Well, the president would have to say, listen, I'm going to stop this. I do not want you to spend the money on this. I want the money to go over here. Now, of course, the central bankers could not have this because, again, if you're going full fiat, you can't have the president saying, we're stopping you. So what did they do? They went ahead and they said, all right, all you corrupt deep state players in Congress right now, you need to vote on this bill that takes the power away from the president. The president should have no power whatsoever to say, hey, you're not going to spend the money here. I want the money to go over there. And that's exactly what they did. They removed the power from the president because you have to remember, before the president had the ability, but gold actually acted like the Impoundment Act. And it gave the power to the president at the time to say, listen, we can't do this because, look, this is the amount of gold we have. This is the amount of currency that we have. And you can see the deep state, the central bankers, they didn't want it this way. So I think what Trump is doing right now, and if you go back a little bit in time, you know that he mentioned that he would like the Impoundment Act of 1974 removed. Now, how do you remove this? Do you think the Congress today will be able to do this? Or do you need control of the Senate, control of the House to remove the Impoundment Act? Because if we're going back to sound money, I do believe at this point in time, we're going to need to remove this Impoundment Act and allow the president to say, listen, yes, I know Congress voted for all this money, but let me take a look at this and let me see where this is going to go. Whoa, wait a minute. Why is this going to all these trans programs? This shouldn't be allowed. This doesn't make any sense. See, this is what happened before. The deep state players, the central bankers, they passed the authority over to the agencies. They decided where the money was going to go. Remember the unelected people? And they're the ones who said, okay, this is how much is going to go here. This is going to go over here. And that's what they did. It's time to end all of this. And I do believe Trump, by showing the people all of this and letting this play out, I think the people are going to see that, wait a minute. First of all, you're going to allow women and children to starve because the government shut down. Trump has a system that's operational. He wants to give that money over, but Congress has the power. And they're saying that Trump can't do this. I mean, really think about how this is playing out right now. And I think the people are going to see this and the people are going to say, what's going on here? And I wouldn't be surprised if Trump starts to mention the Impoundment Act, saying, no, the president should have this ability. Now, can he get around this? Yes, he probably can. But again, what do you think the deep state players are going to do? Since he doesn't have the ability to do this because the Impoundment Act is there, he's going to attempt this. And of course, what are they going to do? They're going to sue. But this is going to look absolutely terrible if they decide to do this, because once again, the government is shut down. He's trying to give women and children money so they can be fed, and they're going to bring lawsuits against them. And if they do, this is not going to look good. The optics are going to be absolutely terrible. And Trump, he'll be able to make his case very easily. And you don't think the people are going to be with him? The president of the United States is saying, listen, we need to do something. We have this money coming in via the tariffs. We need to transfer some of this money to help the women and children. The D's, they shut down the government, and I'm trying to help out. And they're saying I don't have the authority to do this. How do you think this is all going to play out? I do believe this is all leading to the Impoundment Act, and he's pretty much set up the deep state, the central bankers, the D's in all of this. And in the end, the people are going to say, no, I think the president should have the power to do something like this. And Trump's going to make the case, well, the presidents going back in time, they've always had this power. Congress took it away because when we went full fiat in 1971, they couldn't have the president deciding where the funds should go because they knew that since they were able to borrow and borrow and borrow, they wanted to send money off and launder the money to corrupt the system. And Trump, he is now setting it up where he's going to shut all this down. And this is all about getting rid of the central bank system. It's about reversing everything that they did from the very, very beginning. Because once again, as soon as the central bank came into existence, it was pretty much game over for the people. Yes, the central bank, it took them a very long time to set everything up because, again, when you implement something like this, you can't say taxes for everybody. Everyone's going to get an income tax. Oh, by the way, your taxes are going to rise. Inflation is going to hit your currency, and it's going to lose value, and it's going to become more and more difficult as time goes on. They couldn't do that. They have to do it very, very slowly so people don't catch on. And now Trump, he can move at lightning speed to reverse everything that they have done. And that's exactly what he's doing right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.
Let's be clear, cryptocurrency is no longer emerging, it's here. And this latest move cements that reality in the biggest way yet. Trump Media Group just inked a massive $6.4 billion deal with Crypto.com, the world's top crypto platform.
They're teaming up to scoop up $6.4 billion in CRO, the powerhouse token that fuels fast, low-fee DeFi, staking rewards, and real-world perks like cashback on your spends to launch America's first CRO treasury. When it's done, this new company will be the biggest CRO holder out there.
Want in on the action? Head to Crypto.com today and grab some CRO. Let's make crypto great again.